Welcome to another episode of the Bulls Guys podcast. I'm your host, Kenyatta Wright. This is my co host, Mr. Greg Love from Chicago, Illinois, the home of the deep dish pizza.
What's going on?
Playoffs, Greg. Down to business. You ready for the playoffs?
Man, I guess. I mean, I'm glad we got it. Let me just put it that way.
And we got a special guest from the Bullseye Facebook group. Our first time having a guest on the show from the Bullseye Facebook group, Mr. Katara. Has I said that right?
Close enough. Kataka, or you gonna be KG for short?
Okay, Mr. KG. All right, so we're gonna pay some bills. We're gonna take a break, and when we come back, we're gonna dive into the Bulls season in a nutshell. Why do I believe this is the front office fault this entire season? What the Bulls can do to match up with Milwaukee and beat them, and we're just gonna, run down the Bulls season in a nutshell for the most part. All that and more. When we get back. You want the most uncensored and blunt podcast? The Bulls Guys Podcast. As only K-Dub and Greg Love can bring it to you. Follow us on Anchor, Spotify, and all social media platforms. All right, so we're back on the Bulls Guys podcast, and Greg, the Bulls season in a nutshell, man. They fall from number 1 to number 6. They will be playing the Milwaukee Bucks in the first round, and maybe I bit off a little more than I can chew because I believe I made a statement saying against AK, I hope that the Bulls draw the biggest draw in the playoffs so AK can learn his lesson. But it looked like when the Bulls clinched, or the Bulls' opponent clinched their seed, and it seems like I knew at that point that the Bulls were going to face the Milwaukee Bucks. It seems like I was getting a little bit of my own medicine, Greg. What do you think about the Bulls matching up against the Milwaukee Bucks? How do you think we got to this point?
Well, if we're looking at the season in a nutshell, right? Like I think we kind of fed into everything that was going on, especially kind of based from the past few years, how they've been kind of middling, and I'm saying that to be nice, to actually being like in the playoff picture, right? Like it's been a little bit of time since we've actually been in the thick of a playoff picture, not just like, oh, we're fighting for the AC, but actually in the thick of it. So I think we fed into the excitement of it, and especially like, okay, we set our expectations. We talked about it in our first show, right? Like you set your expectation on the number 1 seed. I remember you saying that, and I remember I was saying like, I see them around 5 or 6. And during the season, you have the ebbs and flows, and it looked like you were right for most of the season, and they kind of came back down. So I think if we really look at it upon reflection, I look at this season as a good kind of step forward, because if we look at any of the, Bulls teams, like I know you mentioned, through text messages that, we're a championship organization, which is very true. But if we want to be real, we haven't been a championship organization in like 20 years, right? So we kind of got to get back and take that foundational step. The first step is getting to the playoffs. So I'm not going to sit up here and be one of those guys who will be like, oh yeah, I'm just happy to be here type of thing. Like, no, I want to go in and make some noise, but I also want to be realistic. I really don't see them beating Milwaukee in the way that they've been playing, the way that they've played Milwaukee, and the way that Milwaukee's playing. So, I'm glad. Like, I honestly, best case scenario, I think it goes 6 games. I think, DeMar and Zach, I think they'll get you a game. But I do think at the end, their just lack of defense on the pick and roll and lack of low post kind of presence and defense is going to kill them, and Giannis is going to feast on them off of that.
KG?
Man, where I begin? Like Greg said, we all had these high expectations. I know some guys had expectations, especially when they were starting off hot and, went to the first seed. I didn't think it was going to be number 1, to be honest with you. I was thinking more so in the top 3 or 4, especially early on as we were doing good. And then they just got exposed. I mean, I knew we was going to have a hard time last offseason when they did not address the big situation. I'm like, you know what, this is going to be an issue. I'm looking around the league, and you got your Embiids, you got your Giannis, you had Brook Lopez, you got your Bam. Yeah. And when they kept just adding guards, I was like, why are they not addressing the big situation? That was the first thing that I knew. That's the reason why I said, you know what, we're not going to be a top seed. We're probably going to be maybe 3 or 4.
And you remember me and UKG, we kept talking about that in Bullseye Group.
Yes, and we were getting a lot of flack. And I will also say, man, when they didn't address anything during the trade deadline, they were stuck on Pat Williams. Now, don't get me wrong, Pat played his butt off. He played his butt off, and he proved me wrong so far. And that's what I was
35 last night, man.
Exactly. So he been watching, he been learning. So I mean, I'm gonna admit I was wrong so far, but they still didn't address the big situation. I think if they would have took a chance to get rid of Kobe, I'm not sold on Kobe. And the reason I'm not sold on Kobe was the fact that, I mean, I know he's a big defensive liability. So how we got to this point is that we got a lot of guys that don't play defense, and we didn't address the big situation. And I don't see us winning one game in this Milwaukee series.
Yeah. And I agree. You done, KG?
Yep, I'm done.
To key on both of you guys' points, man, and KG and Greg, because I've been doing this show with Greg for a minute now. Y'all both familiar with my opinion on this whole deal. And listen, my thing was the whole time is that, okay, I understand you're building for the future and you're using this season to see what happens and you're going to go all in next year. But when the Bulls came out the gate and just started blasting everybody and it was a number 1, I'm like, okay, I'm putting my fingers on my chin and I'm like, all right, this is what y'all plan was, but this team showed that they can exceed y'all expectations. They're a number 1 seed, but they just need a few tweaks here and there. So when we started losing and getting exposed, here and there, KG, we still was maintaining our number 1 record, but we weren't beating the teams that we were supposed to, compete against and prove ourselves against. We weren't beating the good teams, and I'm like, okay, you can clearly see that we're number 1 and we're holding on by a thread, and we're playing against these good teams that are exposing our size on the inside. So that was AK's opportunity when the trade deadline came up to make them moves. And when he didn't make those moves, I'm like, dude, how can you not make a move? And everybody that we played against that was beating our asses, we was playing these good teams, they all got better. They all made moves. So how can you stand pat when you couldn't beat them when they didn't make moves? So I just thought that whole complacency thing is what hurt us. And then when we came back and he went with the he wanted to go to the buyout market and he just grabbed Tristan Thompson and that was it. And I'm like, okay, you ain't gonna grab nobody else?
Right.
It was to shut you up. You wanted a big man, he got you a big man.
Yeah, but I just felt like this trade deadline was filled with big men. We know Christian Woods was having problems with the Rockets. He didn't want to be there. He was talking back to his coach. They wanted to part ways. So Christian Wood was on the market. Then you had the Indiana Pacers was giving up Sabonis and Turner. Turner wanted to get out of there.
Dirt cheap. They got rid of Sabonis.
Yeah, but I think once Sabonis got out of town, I think Miles Turner stayed. So I think it was an issue where Miles Turner didn't want to play a certain position. Then when he seen Sabonis was out of there, he like, all right, I want to stay. But there was still some guys on the board. Like they had Porzingis who went to Washington. You mean to tell me that Porzingis wouldn't have wanted to come to Chicago instead of Washington? It's like I just felt like they didn't try hard enough. And I felt like a couple teams asked for Pat. And I understand that's AK's baby. He brought Pat in. So we know that Pat is probably going to be the last guy to go. Zach will probably even go before Pat goes because that's his baby. He's not going to, that's his project, his personal project. AK went out specifically and got that player. So he's not going to give him up.
Yeah.
And that's the crazy part is that he needs a lot of work on himself, but he's the golden goose. He's not going to get touched by anybody. Yeah. But I felt like he built the team right, but when the team showed that it has a couple leaks, he wasn't willing to repair those leaks. And now, because you didn't repair those leaks, now we got a flood in here, buddy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. Here, let me play devil's advocate for you, though. Right? So, let's say AK was looking at the trade market, right? And I think I brought this up before, right? Like, what do the Bulls have to trade that's really, like, anybody would really want? You said you got Kobe, right? You got Kobe, maybe Troy Brown Jr. Like, I know, K-Dub, you've been trying to get rid of Vooch forever, right? Like,
me too.
But at the same time, right? Like, based on how he's playing, is he really wanted? Like, I mean, we've been eager to kind of get rid of him, right? Like, everybody else could kind of see that, right? It's like, okay, you know what you get, and you kind of get these empty calorie stats. Yeah, he's putting up these double-doubles, but not in points that really matter. So is he that great a tradable asset? And like you said, all right, I'm not giving up Pat. I'm not getting up Ayo. You're not getting rid of Zach and DeMar. Like, and the rest is just kind of filler guys, really, like, if we're being honest.
But
so,
it's still on AK. Let me tell you why.
I'm just saying, like, how, like, if you look at it from that situation, what do you have to give up, though?
Well, let me show you what he did that we didn't even need to make no moves. Okay. See, I'm looking at this from different angles, and a lot of Bulls fans is not looking at it from these different angles. He had some guys in the front court that were defensively competent, and Stanley Johnson and Cook. He gave up Stanley Johnson and let Stanley Johnson go. I'm like, hold up. Stanley Johnson started the training camp with us. I seen how he was playing defense. I'm like, yo, we need to keep this guy. You remember me telling you that, right, KG?
Yep, and he balled at the Lakers. He balling.
He went to the Lakers and balled. I'm like, yo, why y'all ain't keep him? And then we still struggling defensively, and he over there balling, playing good defense with the Lakers. That's one.
You mentioned that. Yeah, you mentioned that.
That's one. And then we had Cook on our roster. Cook had some good games. They sent this dude to the G League. I don't know if he was on a two-way contract. I heard he was on a two-way.
Yeah. He played last night.
Right, he played last night. He played pretty good. Yeah. But he played some solid defense on the inside, and they got rid of him. So I'm grabbing my chin again, KG, and I'm like, how we get rid of these guys that defend, and now we sitting here struggling, trying to find defensive guys in the trade deadline? We had the guys.
You could have played Cook with Thompson.
Right, you could have played them together. So that was one. So in the offseason, before all of this, they had a chance to get McGee. When I found out what McGee signed with the Suns for, how much he got paid to go to the Suns, I was furious, KG.
Yeah.
So AK his mind was never on getting defensive bigs. His whole idea was to get guys to play small ball. Because like I told you on the other podcast, Greg, look at Javonte Green is not a power forward.
No, he's not.
And all season they've been using this guy, trying to make him play power forward. And even though he hustles, he's clearly outmatched.
Yeah, he's undersized.
You can't teach height, bro. I don't care how hard he works.
Yeah, but I guess my question is, though, like, I know we're putting a lot of this on AK, especially with the small ball. Like, we've talked about small ball to death about how, like, they're doing it in the most ass-backwards way. But I can't sit up here and totally put it all on AK in the sense of, like, Billy Donovan had to have some say in the construction of the roster, not necessarily the players, but in the sense of, okay, this is the ball that I want to play, so these are the type of players that I need, right? Like, AK just didn't go and decide, like, oh, you're gonna play small ball, and Billy Donovan was like, okay, right? Like, I'm pretty sure, like, this was Billy Donovan's idea to play small ball. And to your point, like you said, Stanley Johnson balling out, like, playing great defense, but it still doesn't solve the Big's problem. Like, he would still be undersized and having to go up against Giannis and things like that, like an Embiid. Still doesn't solve that problem. It just doesn't solve your problem.
But you know how he would have alleviated that, Greg? Because he played with effort. A lot of these guys that we have, and I think Stanley Johnson is a little bit bigger than Javonte Green, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he got about an inch or two over him.
Yeah, he's about 6'7" or something like that. So he could have served as even if you didn't use him for Giannis, could have used him for Middleton in this series. Stanley Johnson on Middleton. But it's just you needed bodies. And then another thing that I have a problem with, sorry to cut you off, Greg, another problem that I have with Billy Donovan per se, and I'm going jousting and back and forth today with a daggone bullseye member trying to convince me that Tibbs is a better Billy Donovan is a better coach than Tibbs. And I'm like, dude, are you smoking crack?
Nah.
Tibbs, I don't care how much you say Tibbs lost in the playoffs. He still accomplished in that little bit amount of time that he was with the Bulls more than Billy Donovan has ever achieved. Right. So you just can't say that, oh, he got fired this many times. It doesn't matter. He got 25 playoff victories to 15 with Billy Donovan. The numbers just not matching up. What the stats say. I don't give a damn about stats. I care about results. And he won more than him. So it doesn't even matter. You know what I'm saying? But my thing is, going back to Billy Donovan, what I hate about him. COVID came, right? So COVID basically forced us to use 8 guys. Yeah. So when COVID was over and the guys came back, I'm like, okay, is Cook hurt? Is Troy Brown Jr. hurt? He got these guys sitting on the bench just not playing and just going with still the same 8-man rotation and wonder why we're getting tired, why teams is blowing us out when our bench come in. Because he's only using 2 or 3 guys off the bench.
You don't trust them. Guys.
But he has to use them because you can't wear these guys down. So in that way, he's like this because he wears down his players.
Yeah, that was Tibbs' biggest issue, was running everybody into the ground.
Yeah, I don't think Donovan really. I don't think he really adjusts well, man. Because if you notice, I mean, I know you got DeRozan, you don't want to pitch DeRozan off, but sometimes you gotta get out of your comfort zone. If DeRozan and Zach is holding that damn ball too long, that's how teams are game planning. You know what I'm saying? It's like that every single game. And as a coach, Billy Donovan needs to stop. I think he's a yes man. You know what I'm saying? And that's the reason. That's his number one mistake. He's been a yes man, and they brought this guy in to be a yes man. Because if that was Tibbs, if that was Phil Jackson, he'd be like, "Look, dude, you holding the ball too damn much. Yeah. You got to move that ball around." So these teams are game planning. Everybody know that. Okay, fourth quarter they're gonna give it to DeRozan. Let's start doubling, triple teaming. Every single team done that. The bad teams and the good teams. Yeah. So number one, he don't adjust. He don't do his adjustments well. 2, he's a yes man. And 3, like K-Dub said, you gotta use all your players. If then you got to question, damn, do you got the right guy to teach the bigs? You got a big man coach. I mean, who's teaching these guys to play? You know, you got Bradley. I don't even know why you signed Bradley. Why you got this dude? This dude is like 7 feet and soft. He like another Felicio to me.
Well, hold on. I'm gonna tell you something real quick, and you might not agree with me. So the Bulls last night, they had 22 team assists, and they had fast break points. They had 15. But the point of the reason why I brought up these stats is because I realized last night DeMar DeRozan is the problem. These guys are watching and sitting around and watching this guy dribble the ball, and isolate and shoot. And they're not getting touches. So what do you think that's going to do with their activity and their enthusiasm? They're not going to want to work hard. Right. They want to touch the ball as well. Pat Williams scored 35 last night. Ayo had 26. And you had Bradley even had 11 and 8 off the bench.
Yeah. Shocking.
So with that said, KG, is the problem our players or is it the system that we're running?
It's
both.
I know I've been talking about this for I don't know how many times that I've mentioned there is no offensive system. It literally has been DeMar is your turn, Zach is your turn. That has been the system. And that's what I've like you said, there's times where you could just watch DeMar gets a rebound, nobody else is touching the ball. But I think that's the Billy Donovan time. To your point in him being a yes man, and to me this kind of mirrors the Lakers and Frank Vogel in the sense of Frank Vogel had no power, no say with anybody at any point in that organization, right? So Billy Donovan kind of reminds me of that. Of he, like you said, he can't go to DeMar and be like, "Hey, pass the ball." All right, you're gonna get fired. Right. You can't go to Zach and be like, "Pass the ball." Mm-hmm. All right, that's not gonna work. You can't go to AK and be like, "Hey, I need you to make these moves or whatever," because these dudes ain't doing it. No, that's not gonna work. So it's just him just trying to be like, okay, well, I guess, sure, let's try to make the best of this, right? We won, cool, and say all the right stuff to the media. The only way I feel like I'm not going to give Billy Donovan a pass, but the only way I could give the Bulls a pass is if you are purely using Billy Donovan as a bridge coach. If that's your plan, I'm fine with it. Like, get him in to get like, okay, this is what a taste of winning looks like, and then get your guy, whoever that's going to be, to take them to the next level. Kind of similar to what Golden State did with Mark Jackson, right? Like, they're like, oh, okay, cool, Mark Jackson, you got us to this point. We suck. We got Steph. We got Clay. Here, let's mold them. Okay, cool. You ready for a champion? All right, let's bring Steve Kerr in. Or even if you look what the Bulls did back with Doug Collins, they moved on to Phil Jackson, right? Like, okay, cool, we ready to go to the next level, right? Like, if that is your purpose with Billy Donovan, fine. Kind of get us that taste of winning, get us in the playoffs, whatever. But your signings don't reflect that. Like, signing, a 30-something DeMar DeRozan does not reflect that Billy Donovan's going to be a bridge coach, right? Like, it says, like, okay, we're trying to go all in now because he only got a 3-year contract. He's only getting older. So, like, at that point, I'm like, what are you doing? Like, what is your purpose? Did you want a yes man? Is that what you wanted? Because we had that. We had that with Boylan. We had that with Fred Hoiberg. We had that. We know what that's like. Donovan, that's not what we're looking for.
Billy Donovan and AK are too smart for their own good, because I believe in my heart, I don't care what anybody says, I believe in my heart since the season started, they were set on just getting this team to qualify for the playoffs.
I agree.
Because nobody expected them to come out the gate and just start blasting everybody like that and get the number one. I did. KG heard me say they was going to be number one, and so did you, Greg. Yeah. I expected it because I look at the makeup of the team. I'm like, hold up. They got Caruso coming off the bench, and then you got Vooch in the paint, and then you got two guys in DeMar and Zach that could create their own shot, and then you got Kobe coming off the bench that could hit threes, and then you have Javante for defense. The makeup of the team, they were so dynamic. And when I seen them play against Milwaukee, the very first game, Greg, I swear to God, I was looking at the game in my room, and I'm like, they could beat Milwaukee, but I don't think Billy Donovan knows how to beat Milwaukee. Milwaukee don't want to play no full court game. And when the Bulls kept getting out and running on them, they were scoring on them easy. If you look at that first game where they played in the UC, and if you look in the first half, every time the Bulls got out and ran, they were scoring on Milwaukee very easy. They were dunking on them.
Yeah, it's because
showboating on them.
Yeah, they can't set up their D.
Yeah, Milwaukee couldn't really put a handle on them. And then I seen as the game kept progressing, guys, they kept trying to force the Bulls into a half-court game because they knew they couldn't play against them. I'm telling you, if Billy Donovan look at that tape, he should know, if he's a real coach, that how to beat the Bucks. Because I'm telling you, if they do that, I'm not guaranteeing they're going to win, but it's going to be a tougher series than people think.
I guess my issue with that, though, is they played them 3 more times after that. Like, that's the thing. Like, he should have been looked at that tape if that was the case.
Right.
Yeah. Right? Like, that's my issue. Like, okay, like I said, if you did it the next game, like, okay, I noticed this pattern. But no, he made 0 adjustments. It was still, okay, DeMar's your turn. Okay, Zach, is your turn. And letting Milwaukee set, as long as Milwaukee is, like, as big as they are, that's not going to work. Like, DeMar's not going to be able to work his mid-range game when you got everybody 7 feet. And athletic. It's just not gonna work.
But one thing I learned about big men when I even played the game, they don't like to run up and down the floor, and they're not gonna get up and down the floor faster than a guard.
Exactly.
That's why you want them to run, because even if they got the ball on that end and they trying to get, or let's say you miss a shot and then they try to get down, you got to get your defense to set up and put a barricade between them and the basket. You got to get down there before them. They're taller than you. You got to guard in packs. You can't guard one-on-one because they're taller than you. And you got to make them feel uncomfortable as possible. You got to make their big men make decisions with the ball. As soon as they turn around, I want to play on his side. I want to play on this side, and I want to play it behind him and force him to pass that ball out and force them into a perimeter game. And then you switch up again and you play your man-to-man and you press half court as they go into a shooting concept. And then when they try to go back in again, you do the same thing. But you got to keep switching it up. You got to pick your poison. You can't just let this team just come down, play a half-court style, and just back your guys down. I've seen Ayo on Giannis. I'm like, oh, well, that's not going to work.
Right.
It's just not going to work. He's going to score. So it's like, okay, you have to figure out something else. And you're right, Greg. How did they beat us the same way for 4 straight games? That's why I think he's a good coach.
That's coaching. That's straight up coaching.
And I noticed
you can catch me. You can catch me one game. You can catch me twice. But how did you beat me constantly and without me making adjustments? And I'm not just talking about game by game, quarter by quarter. you're just letting your team do the same thing and just getting burnt the same way every quarter.
Yeah, it's not the fact that you lost, it's how you lost. The fact that you lost the exact same way 4 straight games says you don't know how to make adjustments.
Exactly. Because, I mean, I noticed that every time they bringing the ball up the court, it's like everybody's, like the whole damn team is in the middle and leaving their shooters open. Because I done seen Grayson Allen and Connaughton and all them cats just popping easy threes. You know, second, I mean, coaching, they're not teaching the guys how to get around picks. I mean, you got guys easily switching, and you got guys that easily can't get around a pick. Nobody's communicating. When I played in the game in some leagues, we communicated. Pick left, pick right. You know what I'm saying? Or we send a guy to his weak side, and you got another guy waiting there for him.
And if you don't pick that up, your teammate and the coach gonna get on your ass.
Exactly.
There's no accountability, man, on this team.
Not at all.
Again, so that's coaching. Like all of that is right. Like it's one thing if you do it one time, right? Like it's like, oh, okay, like that's on me, my bad. But if you allow these habits to continue and it's not corrected, like that's on the coach, right? Like the coach is not sitting up there saying like, hey, on these pick and rolls, call out switches, call out. Like, no, like they're just going to keep doing what they're doing and you're getting the same results. And it's like, oh, why are they scoring? Oh, because you're not communicating. Well, like, no, you're not telling me to. You're not saying anything. You just let me do it. How am I supposed to know I'm doing something wrong if you're not telling me?
Here's the thing, though. If we take out all the X and O's, and I don't even count that, let's just look at it from this standpoint. From you started the season, they deemed you a failure and called you a playing team. They disrespect you on all of these panels, on the ESPN shows and everything. They don't talk about you and put you in discussions. They don't call out your name when you're one of the best teams in the league. Shouldn't that motivate you and say, yo, how can they disrespect us like that? Let us go out here and fight for a cause. Exactly. I don't even see them get angry about people downing them. I didn't even see them get angry when Grayson Allen almost took the teammate out.
Exactly.
I want to see these guys get angry and take something personal and say, yo, we the Bulls, man. We was number 1 in the East. We represented this whole conference for most of the year. What are they talking about? We ain't a team that could come out. We think we could come out. And it just feel like they just go out there and just go through the motions and let me just do my job and just show up. Dude, he has to have a goal, man. This team was built to win a title. As much draft picks as we gave up and as much money as we spent on this team, I'm not trying to hear nothing about, oh, let's just see what happens this year. No, then I would have kept my draft picks.
Exactly.
I would have kept my draft picks and we were just seeing what happens this year. Why did you give up all these draft picks? You see what I'm saying? So I'm not knocking their position and how they're looking at this season. I'm knocking at what you did to achieve that.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing that, and I think this kind of sums up the Bulls season. The angriest I remember them getting is when I told you I went to that game in Memphis, and Tony Bradley got into it with Ja. That was the angriest I saw him, and Steven Adams picked him up like a toddler and took him away, and it squashed all of that. Right, like that is kind of the epitome of the Bulls season. Like at a point, like you hear DeMar, you hear Zach saying like, "Oh, these losses are unacceptable," blah blah blah, and it sounds like, "Oh, okay, cool. That's what I want to hear, right? Like I want to hear some fire, right? Like I want to hear you guys are tired of losing." And then you go out and get blown out by 25, right? And it's like, what was all that you were saying, right? Like, and it's like, it seems to me. Honestly, I think the Bulls need a new voice.
Let me show you when I knew it was done, Greg. To key on what you were saying about getting blown up by 25. They remember that game they lost the first game to the Brooklyn, and I believe
the Warriors.
Yeah, they lost Derrick Jones in that Brooklyn game.
Yeah, early in the game too.
And I think the very next game they lost Zach, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And that was back to back at the UC, and they got blown out by Brooklyn, and they got blown out by the Warriors. So not only was I upset about them saying, well, guys are out, you didn't even renege. I mean, you didn't even redeem yourself in the next game. You got blown out again, and then your excuse for that, well, guys are injured. We lost some of the best play. Dude, I don't care who got hurt. You still have to go out there and get the job done.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying, and that's how Tibbs teams was built. That's why I'm not letting these guys on Bullseye Group tell me that this guy is better than Tibbs was. We could have put 5 of us out there with Tibbs, and Tibbs going to get us the win.
Well, yeah, I guess the thing is, the difference with Tibbs and Billy Donovan is, with Tibbs, D Rose goes down, and all of a sudden Joakim Noah is top 5 in MVP vote, right? Like with Billy Donovan, and this is the thing that I talk about. Like, as much as everybody gets on Tibbs about his offense and how how trash it is, like at least he's out there running a system. Billy Donovan does not run a system. When Zach goes down, everybody knows DeMar's getting the ball. Like everybody and their mama know DeMar's getting the ball. DeMar gets the ball, and it's like you said, okay, we'll just send 5 guys at him. He's not gonna pass it. He's just gonna try to shoot over everybody. That makes it extremely easy to defend, and that's why you're getting blown out. And like you said, the entire season it was, this guy's hurt, that guy's hurt. So when we're at full strength, when we're healthy, we'll see what happens. When we're at full strength, that was the excuse the entire year.
And what did I say? And what did I say about that, Greg? I'm like, hold up.
Everybody's hurt.
No, not that. I was like, hold up. I'm doing the numbers of when they're coming back. They're not going to be back until the playoffs about to start. So you mean to tell me you're going to wait until they come back to play? You're going to be messed up by then.
Yeah, but I mean,
that's exactly what happened, KG. They fell because they sitting there waiting for guys to come back.
Yeah. Yep. I'm going to take it a step further, since you guys mentioned a good thing about they need a voice. And I'm going to go back a little bit. What's messing them up is this so-called culture. If you think about it, when we had Jimmy Butler and D Wade, how they was tied when everybody else when the Bulls was getting their ass kicked, they weren't playing right, and how the two of them got in everybody's asses and spoke up. And guess what happened? D Wade ended up leaving, and Jimmy Butler ended up leaving. Same issue right now. You got guys that are afraid to just to speak up because they're probably afraid of hurting the culture. Do you think that Zach LaVine and DeRozan are getting people's asses? I know Tristan Thompson ain't got no problem because he got a champion. He got a couple 1 or 2 championships.
And we seen him in action too.
So you're gonna need about 5 or 6 Tristan Thompsons. Even if boy down, you got to fight the damn argument with the coach, just like Spoelstra and Jimmy Butler. But guess what? That shit worked, and they was rolling. You know what I'm saying? So they got to get out of that, trying to maintain that old good culture, man. And like you said, man, they got to think about winning.
Here's the thing: I don't give a damn who is out, because we got our ass kicked by some teams that was missing some guys, and they did like, I don't care who's out, we still going to lay it down the Bulls.
Exactly.
And I've seen that firsthand from the Golden State Warriors, from some other teams that were injured. They didn't let that stop them from going. Listen, if you're hungry, you're not going to care who's out. You're going to say, yo, next man up, and you're going to try to figure out a way to win. And to me personally, I don't think these guys are hungry enough. There's guys on here that are hungry, but for the most part, they're not a hungry team. You got guys that are coming from the G League that he put on his team that don't really have nothing to play for. You see what I'm saying? They don't have nothing to play for. They didn't even think there's going to be in the league.
Well, I mean, I guess that's one way to look at it. But I mean, too, if you look at it from a perspective of, like you said, DeMar and Zach hold the ball, they just might not have an opportunity, even if they want to show, like, hey, I can do something. Hey, I belong in this league. If DeMar's like, nah, nobody's touching the ball but me, it kind of makes it hard to showcase yourself. And then Billy Donovan is like, oh, who's this dude? Yeah, I don't trust him. I'm not playing him. Right? Like, it makes it difficult to show, hey, I belong. Hey, I got skills, when you are kind of put behind the 8 ball like that. Like you said, Billy Donovan's playing, 8 guys that he knows, guys that he trusts. Like, you can't build trust like that if you're not playing nobody. And then when you do play, I'm doing air quotes, a system, it is, okay, DeMar, well, it's your turn now. All right, well, I'm going to take the next 5 shots. All right, and then you got Kobe coming in, like, Kobe going to shoot. Like that is the one thing if he don't do nothing else, he going to shoot. So you got Kobe, you got DeMar, Zach got to get his shots, right? Vooch is trying to get his shots. There's not a lot of ball for anybody else to do anything, to showcase anything. It does make it difficult, right? Like, you have these guys, you said you got a Stanley Johnson, you got a Tyler Cook, right? Like, if they're not doing anything essentially defensively, like, unless you are a complete defensive stopper where they're like, okay, we got to keep this guy, like, it's hard for them to make a mark or even show like, hey, yeah, I do need to be on this team. And again, like I keep going back to like that. A lot of that is on coaching. Like a lot of this could be rectified with coaching. And to your point about, you know, the voice and the culture, to me, I think it could really be an easy fix. Like you said, like you got you know, Jimmy Butler down in Miami, you got Udonis Haslem, like they're doing all this stuff. To me, if Zach steps up and is that fiery leader who's like, yo, nah, this is not gonna fly. Like we need to get it together. If he's vocal, if he's that dude, right? Like I think they can get it together because like we have to like Zach's their best player, right? Like as great as DeMar has been playing, Zach is the best player. Mm-hmm. If he steps up and he's like, nah, I'm the one who's gonna set the tone. I don't care what else is going on. Follow my lead, right? If he stepped up and did that, I think that would change everything. Because like the thing is, they're like laid back dudes. Like that, like that's the thing. As much as we talk about, you know, Tristan Thompson, he does have championships, you know. But the thing is, like, he was never like that dude, right? Like it's like Udonis Haslem. Yeah, Udonis Haslem has championships, but he's not that dude, right? Like that's the thing. If you got, like you said, you brought in Dwayne Wade. Like Dwayne Wade was that dude. Jimmy Butler was that dude on the team saying, nah, y'all gonna listen to me. You're gonna respect me, right? Like if Zach does that, right? Like I'm not, you know, I know DeMar's been in the league for a while and everything, but like he's just completely, all right, that's not his personality. Like he's a laid back type of dude. So like if that's gonna be that, like Zach needs to be the one to step up and set the tone and set the culture and be like, nah, like this ain't gonna fly. Like we're not gonna have these half-hearted efforts. And he's guilty of it too. There's plenty of times when I watch him and he's just dogging it on defense. And it's like what, like how do you expect, you know, your rookie to go out there and try? We can look at you and see you not even trying, right? Like where's my motivation to go out there and try to get into somebody and I'm watching you let guys blow past you?
All right,
not
so
depend on the pick and roll.
Here's the biggest thing that made me realize that this team was pretenders. And I want to know how good you guys know me. When they were winning, what did I not like about when they were winning? What did they do? They went in the locker room and was celebrating with water and throwing water on each other.
Yeah. I remember that. Oh, DeMar DeRozan when he and
And they didn't even beat nobody good. And I'm like, DeMar DeRozan, you a veteran. You know better than that, bro. You don't celebrate no regular season games against no bumps. And when they started doing that, I'm like, yeah, these guys are pretenders. And then you go out and play against a good team and get your ass blasted. And then even when you like, you know, we beat some good teams this year. I ain't see us celebrating like that. It's just we were selling the wrong message that, you know, celebrating regular season moral victories, and that's kind of sets you up for failure. And I feel like during the season, you have to keep yourself even keeled and focused. Even when you winning, you got to keep yourself on the goal. Yo, this ain't it. This ain't it. We want more. You got to keep yourself hungry. You can't be satisfied by no win over the Washington Wizards, man. Come on. You know, if you're going to like celebrate and be satisfied for beating a team like that, man, it's over.
Well, hold on. Don't forget the Pacers either. He did hit those 2 back-to-back shots.
Against the Pacers as well.
Yeah. Let's give them their celebrations on back-to-back.
And then against the Clippers.
The Clippers are a solid team, though. They've
been struggling all year. I don't qualify them as.
Well, they didn't have Paul George or Kawhi for most of the year, but I mean they're a solid team. They beat them with Paul George. Like they're a solid team. I think they would be higher seeded if one of them played the entire season.
Right.
They let Reggie Jackson go off.
Yeah, Reggie Jackson did go off on us, man. My thing is this, man. This Bulls team, they have the makeup. They can easily win this series. And they host the Milwaukee next weekend for Bulls fans out there. Also, please like and subscribe. Show your support for the channel. Yeah, man, like this team can easily win the first round series, but they have to play with that hunger and play like that Chicago Bulls team that we seen at the beginning of the year. I'm not trying to hear nothing about injuries no more. We hurt. They only got one guy out.
Right.
And you gonna tell me that only Lonzo Ball is the key to us winning? It's over.
You about to hear it as much as you don't want to. You're gonna hear it. Like in the same way it was, well, when Caruso gets back, right? Like that's when Caruso gets back, then we gonna be on the Lonzo goes out. Oh, well, I mean, yeah, Caruso's back, but when Lonzo gets back, you know, when whoever, like that's how it's gonna be. Like I guarantee, but after the season, I guarantee that they're going to talk about how if we had Lonzo, it would have been different. If we were healthy all year, it would have been different. I guarantee that's going to happen.
And you know why that's a shame? Because that nearly guarantees how we're going to perform in this first round.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, on the previous part, it's to me, I expect them to lose, but it's not so much if they lose, it's how they lose. Like, if you are getting just completely obliterated the entire series, 4 games straight, you get blown out by 20-something each game. All right, maybe AK does decide to make a drastic move and try to trade for like Anthony Davis or something like that, right? Like, who knows? But if it's close, and like you said, like if all we need is a few tweaks, and it's like, okay, I just kind of retool a little bit, then I think that says like, okay, like you said, all right, maybe we do, we need a big, we need to get a JaVale McGee type or something like that. Like I was talking about, I know when we were doing a little trade tracker stuff, I was talking about like a Jackson Hayes from New Orleans, right? Like a young big that can run the floor, right? Like that's what I was thinking about. But it may, maybe if let's say our average, marginal loss was like 3 points for this series, right? It's like, okay, we got a pretty good core group of guys that we need, right? Like it is just a couple tweaks, like you said, maybe it is just getting that big. Who knows? Maybe they trade Vooch. He will be on an expiring contract. So
I want Christian Woods, Greg.
I mean, again, like I'm not so sure how much that changes their rebounding problem and their deficiency as far as having a rim protector.
Well, I think they're gonna need multiple bigs. I wouldn't just grab one. But here's the thing, guys. Like I really had an emotional breakdown this past weekend because not only did I found out that we were playing the Bucks, but I was at the Sixers game and found that out. And I'm thinking, all right, I wanted the Sixers to win because I thought based on the teams being tied, the Celtics, the Sixers, and the Bucks, that the Bulls would end up playing the Celtics. And as the game is winding down and I'm leaving, I'm hearing that we're playing the Bucks. And I'm like, that's the worst possible matchup. But that was the matchup that I asked because I said, I want the Bulls to learn their lesson. I want AK to learn this lesson. But the thing that made me mad the most is to hear Bulls fans say, well, I'll be satisfied if we win 2 games. And that's just not the Chicago way, man. I've been a Bulls fan for like over 30 years. And we've never settled for just winning 2 games. And, at the beginning of the year, we were number 1, Greg. We kicking everybody ass. And we're thinking we're going to be in the Eastern Conference Finals. Then, like, our whole world just changed suddenly. And now I'm seeing, instead of us going to Eastern Conference Finals, we're lucky to even win 2 games in the first round. And our fans would be happy with that. The expectations from our fans has to be higher. It has to be.
I mean, I guess I look at it like this. I agree in having championship aspirations. I feel like if you're not trying for a championship, what's the point of you even being here? But I think in the city where the Bulls have not been good for a very long time, and
I wouldn't say a very long. It's only been like 7 years, but before that, we was fucking people up.
That's still a long time. Like you've had a whole ass dynasty in that time in the Warriors, right? Like, and the Bulls have made like 0 progress, right? Like this is the most progress that we've had, basically since D Rose went down with that knee injury,
right?
Like this is the most progress we've had.
But you know how I felt about that, Greg? I felt like as soon as we got Fred Hoiberg and Jim Boylan out, I felt like we would go back to being that. Because I felt before they brought those guys in, we were still Chicago pride. You know what I'm saying? That 2015 team with Paul Gasol, Aaron Brooks, Joakim Noah, Rose, Tobbs Gibson, Noah. That team I felt like was the best team we ever had. And the officials really had to Pearl Harbor us for LeBron to get by us because we should have beat LeBron that year. I don't care what nobody says. That 2015 team with Paul Gasol should have beat LeBron. And they robbed us. And I felt like, after that, they just brought in this new culture of just shooting and 0 defense. And that's where they went down. But I felt like when we get those guys out, I just felt like they was the bad apple. I never felt like our culture just is just going to go to that. I felt like we got them out and get somebody else in. We go back to Chicago basketball. And for the most part, we have been doing that, up until this point for these last few stretches.
Well, I mean, with that though, that was just management, and like you said, like going to Fred Hoiberg, they said, okay, we want to get shooters, but then they don't get shooters, and then you try to run a shooting offense. That's management not getting to coach the players he needs. But I do think, you know, like I said, like I think a lot of, like you said, a lot of the fans right now are happy to be in the playoffs because we haven't had playoff basketball in a while. But for me, I feel like you said, looking at the makeup of the team and looking at what we could have did and looking at what we were doing for a point, we should have been a lot higher. Like the expectation should be higher. And what I'm looking at is, and I'm hoping this doesn't happen, but I'm feeling like this is what's going to happen is next year everybody is going to raise their level of expectations, and then they're going to get let down if they decide to stand pat. Like if they go with that excuse of, you know, we just need to get healthy type of thing, and we're going to re-sign everybody and run it back, it's going to be a huge letdown next year. Like
I hope that don't happen, man.
I mean, if we run it, like if you run it, if they run it back, basically it's re-sign everybody. That tells me that you absolutely learned nothing from this year.
Exactly.
Right? Like if you decide, I'm still not signing any bigs, I'm still gonna play small ball, I'm still not gonna run, I'm still not going to implement any type of offense, I'm still not going to play any type of defense, it says you've learned nothing. And you're just like, oh, we weren't healthy. If we were healthy, like then what? You're not going to outscore everybody all the time. Because your offense, like you don't have the players for that. You're definitely not locking nobody down because you don't have the players for that. So then, like, what are you doing? Like, what is your identity? Because right now they kind of don't have one. It's whatever DeMar wants to do, whatever Zach wants to do.
No. They got an identity, all right.
What is that identity?
Listen, I've seen it in some games. I can even point out the games where they showed it. The Bulls like to force you. First of all, they press you at half court and they force you into turnovers and they gang up on you, the ball handler, and they force turnovers and they get out and run. That's their style. Getting out and running, getting easy points, getting easy fast breaks, throwing the ball around, sharing the ball, getting everybody cutting and you know what I'm saying, moving around. That's their game. But this half court isolation with DeRozan, he's the bad apple. They got to get in his ear. Don't try to offend him, but we got to go back to playing Chicago Bulls basketball, especially if they want to get out of this series against the Milwaukee Bucks.
Well, let me amend that, right? Like if that is your identity, then don't play peekaboo with your identity. Don't be like, oh, okay, we're going to do it for a game here, right? Like if that is your identity, you need to go and impose that identity on everybody you play instead of just, you know, it comes up sometimes, right? Like you said, you could see it sometimes, not all the time, right? Like, and that's the issue, that there is no real consistency with them. It is Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde with them. Sometimes they play great and you're like, damn, this is a really good team. Damn, we could really go far. And then other times you look at them, it's like, what the hell are y'all doing? Like, why did y'all even bother taking the court? Right? Like, and it's like that, like, that's what needs to change. Like, you need some type of consistency with that. And until that changes, I don't like, and this is the thing. I'm not sitting over here saying like, oh, we need a complete overhaul, because I don't think that's the case. Right? But I do think like things that we touched on are things that they need to do. They do need somebody to step up and be that voice and not tolerate that crap. Like you said,
well, for me,
somebody needs to get in DeMar's ear and be like, nah, this whole pound the rock ISO ball thing, like that's not gonna work. Like you could do it sometimes, right? Like that's fine. I get it in situations, but really, like you said, we need to get out there and run. We need to play defense, press you, force you into turnovers. And to Billy Donovan, you need an actual offensive system. To AK, you need some bigs. And if you want to play that running, you know, that running style, you need some bigs that can run the floor. So probably some young bigs, like I said, like a Jackson Hayes, somebody like that, who can run the floor, who can defend the rim, and who don't necessarily need the ball in their hands to be effective.
Here's my thing. AK couldn't have built the Denver Nuggets by himself. He couldn't have. Because you building this team the total opposite than how you built that team. That team has grit in Denver. That team has competitiveness in Denver. That team has versatility in Denver. You have to figure out different ways to beat teams. The teams in the East that I feel like is going to cause a lot of trouble for teams in the playoffs is Toronto and Boston. The reason why I say that is because they have multiple guys that can play multiple ways. You don't just have big men that can just play inside. They can come out and shoot as well. They can run the floor. They can play full court with you if you want them to. They can play half court. They're long as far as Toronto. Their bigs can shoot, so they pull you out from the basket. They can rebound. They can score on you in the post. They can run as well. They can shoot threes. Those two teams are very versatile. So I think in the upcoming years, and I said that about Cleveland too, Greg, their bigs can shoot and they can post you up.
Yeah, but look at the coaches on those teams, though. Those coaches know what they're doing.
Yeah,
they see the talent that they have, and they're like, okay, well, this is how I'm going to use it. Okay, I have guys that are versatile, so I can do some things. Billy Donovan hasn't shown the ability to do that. Even if he had that team, there's no proof that he would be able to coach them in the way that, you know, Nick Nurse does or Ime Udoka does. Like, there's no proof.
You know what? You know who I really want? I know it might be a stretch. I don't know if you guys agree with me or not. I will see if I can do whatever I can to get Cat over to the Bulls.
I love that.
I could go for that.
And Cat gonna compete. Cat gonna compete too.
He gonna compete. That's Zach's boy.
Yeah.
I will do whatever I can to bring Cat over there. Big upgrade from Booch.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say this. I want angry Cat. I don't want like happy Cat. Like
you don't want the kid. You don't want the kitten. You want the cat.
Yeah, like if we could get Cat to play Joel Embiid like every game, sign me up. Like that, the way he plays Joel, like that's the Cat that I want.
I'm sure he'll play big market. You know what I'm saying? He's playing with his boy.
All right, we're gonna take a quick break, and when we come back, we're gonna wrap up the show right after this.
You're listening to the Bulls Guys podcast, where we talk about your Chicago Bulls and give an unbiased take. Thank you for listening, and like and subscribe.
You want the most uncensored and blunt podcast? The Bulls Guys podcast. As only K-Dub and Greg Love can bring it to you. Follow us on Anchor, Spotify, and all social media platforms. All right, back on the Bulls Guys podcast. So we've reached the end of the show. Good to have my man KG here from the Bulls Eye Facebook group. Probably going to have him on once again in the future. Also, my co-host Greg here. Y'all already know him. But KG, tell us a little bit about yourself, man.
Let's see. Born and raised in Chicago, man. Been a Bulls fan all my life. My uncle Nick Weatherspoon used to play for the Bulls back in the late 70s, early 80s. You know what I'm saying? So, man, die-hard sports fan.
You said he used to play for the Bulls?
Yes, sir. Nick Weatherspoon.
I'm going to look him up.
He actually got drafted in 73. Year I was born, same year that Doug Collins got drafted. Went to Illinois, like myself.
Right. That's interesting, man. Well, we're going to try to have you on, man. You're part of the Bulls Guys family now.
I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it.
All right, Greg, your closing thoughts.
Overall, I'm not going to lie, man. I'm kind of ready just for this series to be over.
Ready?
I honestly feel like it's going to be a bloodbath. If they keep playing the way... I mean, let's take last night out of it because Zach, DeMar, they didn't play and they were basically playing backups. But looking at basically what they were on a 4 or 5 game losing streak, if they're gonna keep playing that type of ball, I don't even want to watch, man. Like it's gonna be bad. Now, if I can get some, the early Bulls when they were the number 1 seed, okay, I'll tune in for that. Like it's gonna be competitive. But again, we played them 4 times, and Billy Donovan is not showing the ability to adjust to Milwaukee. Maybe he was trying to hold his cards out for the playoffs, but I seriously doubt it. But yeah, man, like I'm gonna watch because I'm a fan. I can't help myself. I'm gonna watch, but if it just looks bad, I can't see myself like stick it in just to let myself be tortured like that.
Well, I'm hearing a lot of talking from Pat. I'm hearing a lot of talking from DeMar and quotes from him saying they're going to do this, they're going to do that. Listen, I'm tired of hearing the talking, man. I want to see y'all really go out there and prove yourself and at least play Chicago Bulls basketball. Force this team to at least work hard in this series. And I think they can do it. Like I said, they have the tools and the game plan to beat this team, but they have to know what it takes to beat this team. And they have to put their selfishness behind them and see it as a team. If we share the ball, we can win as a group, you know. But I think they can do it, man. But you know, I'm ready for the playoffs, and it's just I'm just happy to see these guys make it, you know, after going through everything we went through. But, you know, I'm more happy for the fans that haven't seen this team in the playoffs for what, 7 years? What, 5 years?
Yeah.
I'm happy for them, man, to finally get Chicago Bulls basketball back in the playoffs, putting Chicago back on the map. I'm not born in Chicago, man, but I'm Chicago blood, man. And I even know Chicago style and the Chicago way more than Chicagoans. They're sitting up here talking about we want to just win 2 games and go home. Like, nah, that's not the Chicago way, man. And that baby Bulls team in 2007 that swept the Heat, that should have just been happy just to be in the playoffs. No, they're like, we want y'all to out. We want to take y'all out. We're not just trying to make a message just as a team in the play. We want to take y'all out. And that's a team that set the trend for me and showed, yo, Michael Jordan ain't here, but Chicago Bulls basketball is back. Definitely. And we have to maintain that. And, you know, we owe those guys that set that culture to keep that culture going. But that's our show tonight, Bulls fans. Thank you for joining us tonight. Please like and subscribe. Leave your comments below on anything that we spoke about. It was a great discussion. Glad to have you guys on. Go Bulls.
Let's go Bulls.
Go Bulls.